Hey viewers, in today's video we are diving into Aladdin 2019. We will explore the film storyline, break down the plot in a clear and engaging way, and take a closer look at the cast and their character. We will also examine the movie production detail and analyze its box office performance. Finally, we will share reviews along with some personal reactions and insights. Let's get started. Let's start. Take a slow moment to appreciate why Aladdin 2019 is truly worth discussing. At first glance, it may seem like just another movie action remake from Walt Disney Picture. But when we look deeper at its genre, direction, and production style, we begin to see that this film carries more artistic weight that many people initially expect. First, consider the genre. Aladdin blends fantasy, adventure, romance, and musical elements into a vibrant cinematic experience. Fantasy allows the story to sport us into a magical world, Agrabah, filled with flying carpet, enchanted caves, and a wish granting genie. But this is not fantasy for spectacle alone. The magical elements serve as tool to explore identity, honesty, and ambition. The adventure component keep the pacing energetic, while the romance between Aladdin and Jasmine add emotional depth. And of course, the musical aspect song like a whole new video and speechless create moments where emotions are expressed in ways dialogues alone can't achieve. Few genres demand as much coordination between story, music, choreography, and visual design as the musical fantasy. That alone makes this film worth examining. Now let's talk about the director Guy Ritchie. Ritchie is known for fast-paced crime films like Sherlock, Holmes, and Snatch, so his involvement in a colorful Disney musical surprise many critics. This contrast is precisely what makes the film interesting to discuss. Instead of completely abandoning his energetic style, Richer subtly incorporate dynamic camera movement and rhythmic editing, especially in marketplace scene and chase sequence. Yet he balances this with the warmth and theatrical grandeur required of a Disney fairy tale. Watching how a director known for gritty urban storytelling adopt his vision to a family-friendly fantasy setting provide as an engaging case study in creating flexibility. It raises important question how much of a director identity should remain visible in a studio remake. Where does personal study and franchise expectation being? The production style of this film is perhaps its most impressive achievement. The film embraces rich color palette, gold, dark hues, deep red design to evoke a mythical Middle Eastern setting. The costume design alone deserves attention. Every garment sparkles with detail, texture, and culture inspiration. The palace sequence feel grand and theatrical, while the Cave of Wonder sequence rely heavily on CGI spectacle. Here, modern real effect meet traditional fairy tale storytelling. This blend of practical set, elaborate choreography, and digital enhancement demonstrate how contemporary cinema build immersive fantasy world. It is also important to discuss the musical staging. The film expands on the animated original, particularly with Jasmine solo speechless, given the character a stronger narrative voice. Large ensemble dance numbers are carefully choreographed, creating scenes that feel both cinematic and stage-like. This theatrical quality is part of Disney production identity. The film does not aim for realism, it embraces spectacle, and that deliberate embrace of spectacle is something worth analyzing. In an era when many blockbusters chase darker tones, Aladdin confidently chooses brightness, rhythm, and emotional sincerity. Another reason the film deserves discussion is its position within Disney remake era. By reimagining the animated classic Aladdin, the 2019 version invite comparison. What changes were made, why were they made, and how does modern culture awareness shape character development and dialogue? These questions open the door to conversation about adaptation, nostalgia, and audience expectation. Ultimately, Aladdin is more than a colorful fantasy. It is a meeting point between old and new filmmaking style, between animation and live action, between theatrical tradition and digital innovation. As we begin our discussion, keep in mind how genre blending, directorial interpretation, and lavish production design all contribute to the film's identity. When viewed through this lens, Aladdin becomes not just entertainment but a fascinating example of modern blockbuster craftsmanship. Aladdin was produced with an estimated budget of approximately 180 to 183 million dollars, positioning it firmly within the range of high-cost studio blockbuster backed by Walt Disney Pictures and directed by Guy Ritchie. The film represents a calculated financial investment typical of Disney live action remake strategy. This production figure reflect direct filmmaking cost and exclude global marketing expense, which likely added another $100 million or more. When considering both production and promotional spending, the total financial commitment likely exceed to $80 million. A significant portion of the production budget was allocated to large-scale set construction and physical production design rather than relying entirely on digital environment. The filmmaker built extensive practical set to recreate the fictional city of Agrabah, marketplace sequence, palace interior, and large dance number require detailed architecture, builds, elaborate props, and coordinated crowd management. Constructing these environments in studio facilities in the United Kingdom increase upfront cost but allow for greater visual texture and realism compared to fully CGI created background. This hybrid approach, blending practical design with digital enhancement, represent a resource intensive but visually immersive production strategy. Visual effect counted for another substantial share of the budget. The character of the Genie portrayed by Will Smith require advanced CGI integration unlike the animated version. This adaptation needed to convincingly immerse a live performer with digitally enhance the magical element, transformation sequence, energy effects, and large-scale fantasy moments such as Cave of Wonder demanded complex post-production work. While the film did not reach the near total CGI realism of The Lion King, it still relied heavily on visual effect team to maintain spectacle and consistency. Such digital work significantly increased both time and labor costs during post-production. Costume design choreography also required notable financial investment. The film musical number involved elaborate wardrobe pieces, intricate fabric, and coordinated dance ensemble. Each major performance sequence required synchronization between costume department, set lighting, and camera movement. The addition of new musical element expanded the production of score beyond a simple scene by scene remake. These enhancements added creative value but also increased expenditure in the rehearsal time, costume fabrication, and musical arrangement. Cast salaries contributed to the overall cost as well, particularly with the involvement of a high profile actor like Will Smith. Established performer often command substantial compensation, especially in globally marketing studio projects. However, balancing star power with emerging actors in blending roles allow the studio to manage cost relatively to project with multiple A-list salaries. This strategy reflects calculated resource distribution, allocated financial weight where it could most impact global audience appeal. When compared to similar live action remake, the budget for Aladdin aligned closely with Beauty and the Beast, which reportedly cost around $160 million to produce. In contrast, large-scale fantasy remakes such as The Lion King exceeding $250 million due to their reliance on cutting-edge digital rendering technology. Within this context, Aladdin occupies a mid to upper tier financial bracket, expensive but not unprecedented for Disney remake cycle. From an analytical perspective, the budget reflecting a balance between spectacle and financial cushion. The film required substantial capital to deliver musical grandeur, detailed production design, and advanced visual effects. At the same time, it avoided the extreme technical experimentation that drew cost higher in some comparable projects. Ultimately, the allocation of resource demonstrate a strategic investment recognizable in intellectual property, visual spectacle, and global market appeal, key element in contemporary blockbuster economies. Aladdin operates primarily within the fantasy adventure genre while also embracing a romance and musical tradition. Its genre identity is central to understanding its overall mood. Because each element fantasy, adventure, romance, and musical spectacle contribute to the film atmosphere and emotional rhythm rather than presenting a dark or psychological complex narrative. The film aimed for accessibility, vibrancy, and emotional uplift. The fantasy component established the film's atmospheric foundation from the glowing cave of wonder to the magical transformation of the genie. The environment is intentionally heightened beyond realism. The city of Agrabah is depicted as colorful, expansive, and almost theatrical in its design. Warm gold, deep blues, and rich red dominate the visual palette, creating a sense of enchantment. This stylized world signals to the audience that the story belongs to a fairy tale tradition. The fantasy genre here is not meant to feel mysterious or ominous, instead, it is bright and inviting. Even moments of danger are framed within a family friendly context, ensuring that tension overwhelm the sense of wonder. The adventure aspect shaped the film's pacing, chase sequence through bustling marketplace, escape from the cave of wonder, and confrontations within the palace provided kinetic energy. Director Guy Ritchie incorporates quick editing and fluid camera movement during these scenes, which create burst and excitement without shifting the tone into harsh intensity. The pacing alternates between high energy action and slower, emotionally reflective scene. Musical numbers often serve as transition, resetting the emotional tempo and preventing the narrative from becoming too heavy. As a musical, the film carries a tone of theatrical expressiveness. Songs such as A Whole New World and Jasmine Speechless are not simply decorative, they define the emotional atmosphere. Musical sequences suspend ordinary narrative flow, allowing character to express internal desire outwardly. This stylistic choice contribute to a mood that is hopeful and aspirational. Even when characters face obstacles, the presence of music suggests that resolution and growth are possible. Their choreography and ensemble staging reinforces tone, making the film feel celebratory rather than tense. Romance introduce softness into the overall mood. The relationship between Aladdin and Jasmine unfold gradually, built on curiosity and sheer longing for freedom. Their sequences are lit and framed with warmth, particularly during the iconic carpet ride. The romantic atmosphere is gentle and idealistic, consistent with classic fairy tale storytelling. Unlike more contemporary romantic dramas that emphasize conflict or realism, this film leans into sincerity and innocence. The tone remains emotionally accessible for a broad audience. Stylistically, the film embraced spectral arts, elaborate costume, and digitally enhanced magic create a visual language that emphasizes grandeur. Produced by Walt Disney Pictures, the film adheres to Disney's signature approach: bright visuals, clear moral themes, and emotionally direct storytelling. The mood never drifts into cynicism. Even the villain's presence is stylized rather than psychologically disturbing. Tension exists, but it is balanced by humor, largely delivered through the Jenny personality, which keep the atmosphere light. The tone throughout remain optimistic. Theme of self-discovery, honesty, and empowerment are presenting in a straightforward and encouraging manner. While moments of suspense occur, they are brief and carefully measured. The film structure ensure that emotional laws are flow by uplifting highs, maintaining a steady rhythm that aligns with film-oriented fantasy storytelling. Overall, the genre blending fantasy, adventure, romance, and musical element create a mood that is colorful, energetic, and emotionally uplifting. The atmosphere is immersive yet approachable. The pacing dynamic yet controlled, and the tone consistently hopeful. Through its stylistic choice and genre framework, Aladdin 2019 delivered an experience designed to entertain broadly while reinforcing classy fairy tale optimism. Before the release of Aladdin, audience expectations were shaped by multiple factors including nostalgia, brand reputation, casting choice, and broader trend of live action remakes. Viewers did not approach the film as an entirely new story. Instead, most carry prior knowledge and emotional connection, particularly those familiar with Aladdin. These expectations vary across different viewers' demographic, anticipated theme, and genre fan community. For many adults in their late 20s to the 40s, the primary expectation was nostalgia. This demographic grew up with the 1992 animated classic and often associated with childhood memories. As a result, they expect the live action version to preserve iconic song, recognizable dialogue, and beloved character dynamic. There was curiosity about how faithfully the remake would follow the original narrative structure. At the same time, there was caution skepticism. Some viewers worried about that the magic and humor of the animated version, particularly the performance originally voiced by Robin Williams, might be difficult to replicate. From this group, expectations were emotionally charged. They wanted modernization, but not at the expense of charm. Younger audience, including children and teenagers, approached the film differently. Many in this demographic were less attached to the original animated feature. Their expectation created more on spectacle and entertainment value. As a Disney production backed by Walt Disney Picture, viewers anticipated high production quality, colorful visuals, and engaging musical sequence. This group expected fast-pacing, human, and visually impressive effect. The Janie's power, the flying carpet sequence, and a large dance number were anticipated highlight. For younger viewers, familiarity with the brand mattered more than fidelity to the animated predecessor. Genre fans also play a significant role in shaping expectation. Fantasy enthusiasts anticipated immersive world building, magical element, and strong visual effect. They expected Agrabah to feel expensive and detailed rather than artificial. Musical fan, on the other hand, focus on vocal performance and choreography. There was particular anticipation surrounded how iconic song A New Whole World would be staged in live action. Musical genre fans typically look for emotional expression through song, so they expected the film to preserve the theatrical quality of its source material while expanding it cinematically. Another important factor influencing expectation was the casting of Will Smith as the Genie. This choice generated widespread discussion. Prior to release, audience anticipated a fresh interpretation rather than a direct imitation of Robin Williams' animated performance. Fans of Will Smith expected charisma, humor, and modern energy. However, there was also uncertainty about whether his performance style would align with the fairy tale tone of the story. This casting decision creating a mixture of curiosity and caution, anticipation, raising expectation that the character would feel both contemporary and careful of the original. Anticipated themes also shaped audience outlook. Viewers expected familiar narrative elements such as self-discovery, honesty, and the pursuit of freedom. However, because the film was being released in a modern culture climate, there was an expectation of thematic update. Many anticipated a strong portrayal of Princess Jasmine independence and leadership. Audience increasingly expect live action adaptation to reflect contemporary values, particularly regarding female empowerment and representation. However, viewers look for narrative adjustment that would deepen character motivation while maintaining the classic fairy tale arc. Additionally, the modern context of the Disney remake era influenced expectation. Previous adaptations such as Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King had established a pattern of visually lavish but narratively familiar retelling. Audience before therefore anticipated high production values and faithful storytelling. Many expected innovation while others prefer minimal deviation from the original formula. The tension between originality and the loyalty shaped pre-release conservation. Ultimately, audience expectations for this film were layered and complex. Different demographics approached the film with different priorities. Nostalgia for older viewers, spectrum for younger audience, musical authority for genre fan, and the thematic modernization for socially conscious viewers. These varied expectations created a unique challenge for the filmmaker. The film needed to balance emotionally familiarity with visual innovation, cultural sensitivity with the entertainment appeal, and nostalgia with contemporary relevance. In this sense, the anticipation surrounded Aladdin was not simply about entertainment, it is about whether a modern remake could satisfy diverse audience demand while honoring a beloved classic. This film is designed with a broad but clearly defined target audience in mind. As a live action adaptation produced by Walt Disney Pictures, the film aimed to appeal across age group while remaining rooted in family friendly entertainment. Its target viewer can be understood through three main categories: age group, interest, and genre preferences. In terms of age group, this family is primarily made for families, particularly children aged 6 to 12. The storytelling is straightforward, the moral lessons are clearly communicated, and the tone avoid excessive darkness or complexity. Younger viewers are drawn to the bright visuals, magical elements, energetic musical number. The character of the Genie, portrayed by Will Smith, add humor and playful energy that resonates strongly with children. The pacing is lively enough to maintain attention, and the theme of honesty and self-belief are presented in accessible way. However, the target audience extend beyond children. Teenagers also form a key demographic. From this age group, the romantic storyline between Aladdin and Jasmine become more meaningful. Themes of identity, ambition, and social status can resonate with adolescents navigating their own sense of self. Jasmine expanded role as a character who desire leadership and independence may particularly connected with teenage viewers seeking empowerment narratives. The musical format and stylized fantasy setting make the story feel aspirational rather than overly childish, allowing teens to engage without feeling excluded. Adults represent another significant segment of the target audience. Many adults approach the film with nostalgia, particularly those who grew up watching Aladdin. For them, the live action version offers a revisiting of familiar song and story beats, now presenting with updated visuals and performance. Disney remake strategy intentionally include his nostalgic demographic, ensuring that parents who once loved the original are willing to share the experience with their children. The film's polished production design and large-scale musical staging provide visual appeal that adults can appreciate beyond simple storytelling. Looking at interest, the film is made for viewers who enjoy fantasy worlds and imaginative storytelling. The setting of Agrabah, musical objects like the lamp and flying carpet, and supernatural elements such as wish fulfillment cater to audience who enjoy escapism. Fans of fairy tale and myth inspired narrative are likely to find the film appealing because it offers a classic hero journey structure. The story follows familiar pattern of struggle, transformation, and redemption, which align with traditional adventure storytelling. The movie is also aimed at viewers who enjoy musical Now, musical enthusiasm who often appreciate the integration of choreography, costume design, and vocal performance into narrative progression and the music a whole new world. The theatrical style of presentation, colorful step, ensemble dance, number, and dramatic lighting align with viewers who prefer expressive storytelling over subtitle realism. Those who favor grounded, minimalistic drama may find the film overly stylized, but fans of musical spectrum are likely the part of the intended audience. In terms of genre preferences, the film clearly targets fans of fantasy, adventure, hybrid. The action sequence, including marketplace chase and palace confrontation, provide excitement without extreme violence. This control intensity make the film suitable for younger audience while still engaging for adults. It avoid the darker tone who associate with contemporary fantasy franchise, instead prioritizing warmth and accessibility. Viewers who prefer highlighted adventure with a clear moral outcome will find it aligned with their taste. Additionally, the film is well suited for audience who value optimistic storytelling. The tone is consistently hopeful, reinforcing messages about self-worth and integrity. The narrative resolves conflict in a way that emphasizes personal growth rather than moral ambiguity. As such, the movie is particularly appropriate for viewers in seeking uplifting entertainment rather than emotionally heavy or complex drama. Overall, this is crafted for family audience, nostalgic adult fantasy lovers, and musical enthusiasts. It is less tailored for viewers who prefer gritty realism or psychologically intense narrative. By blending accessible storytelling, vibrant spectacle, and familiar fairy tale themes, the film successfully positions itself as multi-generational entertainment designed to satisfy a wide but carefully considered target audience. It promises an emotional experience rooted in wonder, optimism, and heartfelt self discovery. From its opening scene to its final resolution, the film is designed to guide viewers through a carefully balanced emotional journey shaped by mood, central theme, and intended impact. Rather than delivering psychological intensity or tragedy, it offers uplifting escapism combined with sincere character growth. The overall mood of the film is vibrant and hopeful, bright color, energetic musical number, and moment of humor create an atmosphere that feels light and inviting even when conflict arises. Whether through dissipation, power struggle, personal depth, the tone rarely become oppressive. Instead, tension is quickly balanced with warmth or spectacle. This creates a sense of emotional safety for viewers. Audience can engage with suspenseful movement without feeling overwhelmed. The mood is structured to reassure rather than unsettle, making the experience accessible to a wide range of ages. Music play a central role in shaping this emotional atmosphere. Songs are not simply decorative but serve as emotional peak unward new world. The music evoke awe and romantic wonder, encouraging viewer to feel the exhilaration of freedom alongside the character. Jasmine's speechless channel determination and empowerment, inviting audience to share in her resolve. These musical sequence and amplify internal emotion and transform them into shared collective experience. The intended feeling is one of elevation moment where emotion rise above dialogue and become expansive and celebratory. The film theme strongly influences its emotional direction. At its core, the story revolve around identity and authenticity. Healthy struggle to balance his true self with the persona of a prince create emotional tension rooted in insecurity and aspiration. Viewers are meant to emphasize with his fear of not being enough. This theme resonates universally, particularly with the younger audience navigating self image and belonging. When Aladdin ultimately embraces honesty, the emotional payoff is satisfying because it resolves an internal conflict rather than just an external threat. Another key theme is empowerment, especially through Jasmine's character. Her desire to lead and to have her voice heard add emotional depth to the narrative. The film positions empowerment not as aggression but as confidence and self assertion. Audience are encouraged to feel inspired rather than confrontational. This contribute to the overall tone of positivity. The intended impact is motivational. Viewers leave feeling that integrity and courage are attainable qualities. Friendship and loyalty further shape the emotional experience. The relationship between Aladdin and the Genie, portrayed by Will Smith, introduced humor and warmth. Their balance is dynamic, prevent the film from becoming overly sentimental. The Genie comedic energy, balancing emotional sincerity and with levity. This interplay ensures that emotional highs are paired with laughter, maintaining a steady rhythm throughout the narrative. The result is a viewing experience that alternates between heartfelt and playful without losing cohesion. The fantasy setting enhances the emotional promise of escapism. Produced by Walt Disney Pictures, the film leans into spectacle, lavish costume, glowing magic, and sweeping palace scene. These elements are not only visually impressive but emotionally immersive. They create a world where transformation feel possible. The magic lamps symbolizing wish fulfillment, reinforcing the fantasy that life can change dramatically for the better. This aspirational quality encourages viewers to imagine their own potential for growth and opportunity. Importantly, the film avoids cynicism. Its emotional structure is built around reassurance. Good intention matter, love is sincere, and honesty lead to resolution. The climax deliver triumph rather than ambiguity, ensuring that audience leave with a sense of clear and satisfaction. This emotional clarity align with expectation of family-oriented fantasy storytelling. Ultimately, the emotional experience promised by the film is uplifting and in an inspirational. Its mood is colorful and hopeful. Its theme emphasizes authenticity and empowerment. And its intended impact is to leave viewers feeling encouraged and entertained. The film invites the audience momentary escape into a magical world, but more importantly, it invites them to return to reality with renewed belief in themselves and in the possibility of positive changes. The film centers on a timeless narrative concept, the tension between who we are and who we believe we must become in order to be worthy. Beneath its fantasy, spectacle, and musical presentation lies a story built on universal theme of identity, authenticity, power, and freedom. When examined in abstract terms, the film's core idea is less about magical lamps and a royal palace and more about the human desire for transformation and the realization that true transformation being internally. At the heart of the story is the theme of identity, the protagonist being as someone who perceives himself as insignificant, defined by poverty and social status. His environment reinforces his beliefs, suggesting that worth is tied to wealth, lineage, or position. The magical opportunity to wish for change becomes symbolic of a deeper human belonging. The wish to be seen differently. In abstract terms, the lamp is not merely a plot device but a metaphor for external validation. It represents shortcuts, solutions, and the temptation to solve internal insecurity through outward change. This leads directly into the theme of authenticity. The narrative repeatedly contrasts appearance with truth. When the protagonist adopts a false identity to gain acceptance, he temporarily achieves admiration but loses connection to his authentic self. The story suggests that constructed personas may achieve short-term success but ultimately fracture under emotional strain. The tension is not simply romantic or social; it is existential. The character must confront the dissonance between self-image and self-worth. In this way, the film articulate a broader message. Fulfillment can be sustained by only authenticity becomes the pathway to lasting resolution. Power is another core theme explored through multiple dimensions. The magical power of the genie contrasts with political power within the kingdom and the personal power rooted in confidence. The story present power as morally neutral. It is the intention behind it use that determine consequence. One character seeks power to dominate and control, reflecting fear and insecurity, masked as ambition, and other characters seek the power to lead responsibly and the here reflecting empowerment rather than conquest. The narrative thus differentiates between power as possession and power as responsibility. In contrast, the story progress that truth strength lies not in control over other but in mastery over oneself. Freedom also functions as a central story concept. Different characters yearn for liberation in distant way: freedom from poverty, freedom from social constraint, freedom from servitude, freedom from imposed silence. These layered desires intersect throughout the narrative. The genie longing for autonomy parallel the protagonist's desire for upward mobility and the prince's desire for agency. Freedom, therefore, is not confined to physical escape but extends to emotional and societal liberation. The story suggests that freedom requiring courage, particularly the courage to reject a role imposed by tradition or expectation. The romantic elements support these themes by emphasizing mutual recognition rather than superficial attraction. Loves become meaningful only when characters see each other without excuse. That reinforces the message that genuine connection depend on truth. Romantic fulfillment is not portrayed as a reward for status but as a consequence of honesty. The emotional arc affirms that vulnerability is not weakness but strength. The film fantasy structure amplify these themes through symbolism, magical transformation, visually dramatize internal struggle, which is serve as narrative experiment, testing whether external change can substitute for self-acceptance. The eventual realization that worth can't be manufactured anchor the story message by embedding abstract ideas within spectre. The film make philosophical concept accessible. It invites viewers to consider their own desire for transformation and the motivation behind them. Produced by Walt Disney Picture, the story aligns with the studio's tradition of moral clarity while incorporating contemporary emphasis on empowerment. The expanded role of the princes highlight leadership and voice as integral to self actualization. This modernized focus reinforces the central message: identity should not be constrained by hierarchy or expectation. Ultimately, the core idea of the film is that self worth can't be granted by magic, wealth, or status. It must be recognized and embraced from within. The narrative weaves together theme of authenticity, responsible power, and the personal freedom into a cohesive story concept about becoming whole. While framed as a fantasy adventure, its abstract message of universal transformation is meaningfully only when it reveals rather than replace the true self. It is structured around a central conflict that operates on both external and internal lives, while the narrative includes visible struggle for power and position. The deeper tension lie in moral dilemmas about identity, worth, and ethics of transformation. The primary film's conflict is not simply about opposing forces competing for control. It is about the psychological and ethical strain between authenticity and ambition. At the heart of the story is a moral dilemma rooted in self perception. The protagonist confront the belief that personal value is measured by social status. This belief generates internal tension or remain truthful and risk rejection or adopt a constructed identity to scare acceptance. The conflict is therefore existential rather than merely situational. It challenges the character to question whether love, respect, and opportunity must be earned through deception or thorough honesty. The emotional strain comes from navigating a world that appears to reward image over substances. This dilemma expands into a broader thematic question: is transform ethical when it conceals truth? The story presents the temptation of rapid elevation of becoming someone greater in the eye of society. Yet this elevation requires compromise. The central conflict grows from the gap between external success and internal integrity. As ambition increases, so does the tension between self preservation and self betrayal. The narrative suggests that each step toward illusion deepens the emotional divide between who the character truly is and who he appears to be. Running parallel to this internal struggle is a contrasting challenge centered on power, and the key figure in the story embodies a pursuit of authority without moral restraint. This figure represents ambition untethered from empathy. The tension between these two approaches to aspiration, one conflict and self-aware, the other singularly focused on dominance, create the external dimension of the central conflict. The clash is philosophical as much as personal. It raises the question of whether power is inherently cooperating, or whether corruption stems from insecurity and fear. The story also introduces a social dimension to the conflict. Structure of hierarchy and tradition shape the character choices. Expectation about class, leadership, and gender create barrier that intensity internal doubt. For one character, the challenge is to claim a voice within a system that limits participation. For another, the challenge is to transcend label imposed by circumstances. These pressures heighten the tension because they are not easily dismantled. They reflect broader societal dilemmas about who is deemed worthy of opportunity, of authority or opportunity. Trust become another level of the central conflict. When individuals rely on constructed images, relationship become fragile. The possibility of exposure generate ongoing suspense. The moral challenges shift from merely achieving a goal to sustaining authenticity with connection. The emotional tension lies in the fear that truth may dissolve admiration or affection. Thus, the conflict extends beyond personal ambition into relational vulnerability. A further dimension of the struggle concerns freedom. Different characters grapple with varying form of constant economic limitations, social expectation, and literal lack of autonomy. These constraints create pressure to seize any available means of escape. Yet the story questions whether freedom achieved through alien is genuine freedom at all. The tension arises from the paradox that liberation pursued dishonestly may create new form of entrapment. In this way, the narrative reframes the idea of freedom as something that must align with moral integrity to be sustainable. The film fantasy framework intensifies these moral dilemmas by amplifying choices through symbolic mean. Opportunity for dramatic change appears suddenly and with that immense potential. This exaggeration serves to magnify internal conflict. When the possibility of transformation is limitless, the ethical responsibility of choosing wisely becomes heavier. The tension is therefore magnify the power, the greater to alert circumstances, the greater the risk of losing oneself. Produced by Walt Disney Pictures, the story ultimately frames central conflict within a tradition of moral clarity. However, before resolution is achieved, the narrative sustains meaningfully ambiguity. Character must confront the consequence of their choices, wrestling with pride, fear, and desire. The core struggle is not about defecting an opponent alone, it is about reconciling aspiration with honesty. In abstract terms, the central conflict of the film revolves around the tension between illusion and integrity. It explores whether identity can be reshaped without sacrificing authenticity, whether ambition can coexist with morality, and whether power can pursue without corruption. Through a layered moral dilemma and sustained psychological tension, the film presents a conflict that ultimately about self-recognition. The resolution depends not merely on overcoming external obstacles but on confronting the internal factors created by doubt and dissipation. It explores a range of interconnected themes that generate on ethical, emotional, and cultural level. Beneath its colorful fantasy surface, the story examines question of identity, integrity, power, freedom, and belonging. These themes are expressed through the character development and symbolic storytelling rather than through heavy realism, yet they raise meaningful ethical questions and reflect broader cultural conservation. One of the most prominent themes is identity and self worth. The narrative consistently asks whether value is inherent or socially assigned. The ethical question at the center of this theme is simple but profound. Should a person alert who they are to be accepted? The emotional arc tied to this question allow follows a journey from insecurity to self-recognition. The protagonist initially perceived himself as inadequate because of his social status. His desire to be seen differently reflect a universal human experience, a longing for validation. However, the story challenged the notion that identity can be successfully reshaped through appearance alone. The deeper message suggests that authenticity not alone forms the foundation of meaningful respect and connection. Closely linked to identity is the theme of honesty. The film poses a subtitle ethical dilemma about dissipation used for positive intention. If someone lies in pursuit of love or opportunity, does the motivation justify the act? This question drives emotional tension throughout the narrative. The emotional arc here moves from excitement and temporary triumph to anxiety and internal conflict. The story implies that depreciation, even when rooted in insecurity rather than malice, create emotional instability. Trust becomes fragile when truth is obscured. In resolving this theme, the film reinforces the value of transparency as essential for lasting relationship. Power and ambition from another significant thematic layer. The story contrasts two different approaches to power, one driven by fear and control, and the other shaped by responsibility and growth. The ethical question arises: is power inherently corrupting, or does corruption stem from the intention behind it? One's character arc demonstrates how unchecked ambition can distort judgment, while another character journey highlights the possibility of wielding influence ethically. The contrast underscores the film's message that authority without empathy leads to imbalance, while power grounded in integrity can create positive change. The theme of freedom is equally central. Multiple characters yearn for liberation through the nature of that liberation varies. For one, it involves escaping economic hardship. For another, it means gaining autonomy from imposed rule. For yet another, it signifies release from literal servitude. These layered desires broaden the emotional scope of the story. Freedom becomes both a personal and societal aspiration. The cultural topic embedded within these themes concerns social hierarchy and mobility. The film reflects ongoing discussion about class boundaries and the possibility of transcending them. It suggests that system restricting opportunity can be challenged through not without courage. Gender empowerment are also explored, particularly through the expanded characterization of the princess. Her emotional arc center on wise and leadership. Rather than serving slowly as a romantic figure, she seeks agency within a political structure that limit her participation. The ethical question here is whether tradition should dedicate leadership eligibility. This aspect of the story resonates with contemporary culture conservation about representation and equality. By emphasizing empowerment without undetermined compensation, the narrative position leadership as a quality defined by wisdom and courage rather than gender or lineage. Friendship and loyalty contribute additional emotional depth. The relationship between the protagonist and the genie introduce a theme of mutual respect across status, difference in status and power. The genie portrayed by Will Smith embodies both immense capability and personal longing. His arc emphasizes that even those with extraordinary gift may lack autonomy. This dynamic reinforces the broader theme that dignity is universal and not dependent on role or function. Culturally, the film reflects a blending of traditional fairy tale storytelling with modern sensibility produced by Walt Disney Pictures. It maintains clear moral resolution while incorporating updated perspective on empowerment and agency. The fantasy setting allow the narrative to explore sensitive social topics such as inequality and authority within a symbolic framework. By doing so, it makes complex themes accessible to film audience without diminishing their relevance. Ultimately, the themes explored in Aladdin 2019 revolve around the tension between experience and authenticity, ambition and ethics, constraint and freedom. Through emotional arc that move from insecurity to self-assurance and from silence to voice, the film presents ethical question in a hopeful, accessible manner. Its cultural topic align with contemporary values while remaining grounded in timeless fairy tale morality. The result is a story that entertains through spectacle while inviting reflection on identity, responsibility, and the courage to live truthfully. The film creates emotional connection through a careful balance, ambition of uplifting mood, relatable themes, and immersive viewer experience. Although framed as a fantasy adventure, the story resonates because it taps into universal human desire, acceptance, freedom, belonging, and self-worth. The emotional engagement does not rely on heavy tragedy or complex psychological drama. Instead, it builds connection through sincerity, optimism, and recognizable internal struggle. The overall mood of the film play a major role in shaping this connection. Bright visual, energetic musical number, and moment of humor create a welcoming emotional atmosphere. Viewers are invited into a world that feels magical yet emotionally safe. Even during moments of tension, the tone rarely becomes overwhelming. This balance allows audience of different age to remain engaged without discomfort. The mood reassures viewers that despite obstacle, hope remain present. That emotional safety encourages deeper empathy because audience are feared to focus on character growth rather than fear of harsh outcome. Music strengthens this emotional bridge. Song transform private feeling into sheer experience. When characters sing about longing, doubt, or aspiration, those emotions become amplified and collective. The romantic wonder expressed in this song, for example, is not conformed to the character. It invites viewers to feel awe and possibility alongside them. Musical storytelling intensify emotion by combining lyrics, melody, and visual spectacle. The result is a layered sensory experience that heighten empathy and leaves lasting impression. The film's themes are central to its emotional power, identity, and word self worth resonate widely because nearly every viewer has experienced insecurity or the desire to be seen differently. The protagonist's internal conflict, feeling inadequate because of social status, mirrors a real life struggle with comparison and self doubt. Audience recognize this vulnerability even without a fantasy setting. The emotional connection formed because the internal magic symbolizes internal wishes that feel deeply human. Viewers may not possess a magic lamp but they understand the longing to transform circumstances or to be perceived as enough. Honesty and authenticity also deepen viewers' engagement. The tension created by concealed truth reflects real world fear about rejection. Audience emphasize with the anxiety that accompanies maintaining a false image. When authenticity is eventually embraced, the emotional release feels satisfying because it resolves a relatable conflict. The story reassures viewers that honesty through risky lead to stronger relationship. This message reinforces emotional warmth and trust in the narrative moral framework. Empowerment further enhances the emotional experience. The prince's desire for leadership and wise connect with viewers who have felt overlooked or constrained by expectation. Her arc emphasizes courage rather than rebellion for its own sake. This mere portrayal of empowerment allows audience to feel inspired rather than controlled. Viewers who seek affirmation of their own aspiration can identify with their determination. The emotional impact lies in witnessing someone claim agency with maintaining compensation and integrity. The Janie's presence, portrayed by Will Smith, had another dimension of emotional connection beneath human and spectral. The character embodies longing for freedom and recognition beyond utility. This duality, great power paired with personal limitation, creates subtitle poignancy. Audience respond not only to the character's comedic energy but also to his vulnerability. His arc reinforces a theme that dignity and autonomy matter, conversely strengthening the film's emotional resonance. The power viewers experience is further shaped by immersive fantasy environment produced by Walt Disney Picture. The film uses vibrant set design and sweeping cinematography to create a world that feels expansive and aspirational. The spectacle is not merely decorative, it's both emotional escapism. By entertaining a visually rich setting, viewers momentarily step outside everyday concern. Within that escape, they encounter familiar emotional truth presenting in heightened form. The contrast between magical setting and human vulnerability make the connection feel both grand and intimate. Importantly, the film maintains consistently hopeful tone. The emotional setback occur when despair never dominates. This optimism fosters a sense of reassurance that growth and redemption are attainable. For family audience, this balance is particularly effective. Children experience excitement and wonder, while adults receive deeper thematic currents. The shared experience across generations strengthen collective emotional engagement. Ultimately, the emotional connection in this film emerges from its fear of uplifting mood, relatable themes, and immersive presentation. By aligning fantasy spectacle with universal human struggle, the story invites viewers to see themselves within its magic. The intended impact is not only entertainment but encouragement, a reminder that authenticity, courage, and self belief can transform lives more meaningfully than any wish. It presents its central figure through familiar archetype, yet attempt to modernize them with clear emotional motivation and expanded personal traits. In reviewers' terms, the effectiveness of the films largely depend on how convincingly these characters embody timeless story while remaining relatable to contemporary audience. The primary main character function as a classic underdog hero archetype. He began at the margin of society, defined more by circumstances than by choice. As an archetype, he represents potential untapped ability waiting for opportunity. His personality traits include charm, quick thinking, optimism, and vulnerability. What makes him emotionally engaging is not just his ambition but his insecurity. He does not simply desire wealth, he craves validation that knows that depth to that might otherwise be straightforward. Raised to riches figure in performance terms, the character balances light-hearted charisma with visible self-doubt. As a reviewer, one might observe that his journey succeeds when it focuses on internal growth rather than spectacle. His arc becomes more compelling when he confronts the tension between who he is and who he believes he must pretend to be. The female lead embodies a blend of archetype, the prince and the reformer. Traditionally, the fairy tale loyalty often functions as passive figure awaiting rescue. However, this adaptation repositions her as an agent of change. Her personality traits include intelligence, determination, empathy, and quiet resilience. She is not framed as a rebellious for the sake of rebellion, but as principled and thoughtful. From a reviewer perspective, her expanded role strengthens the narrative by grounding it in contemporary sensibility. She represents empowerment without losing warmth. Her emotional arc revolves around voice and agency, and its thematic clarity enhances her presence rather than existing slowly with an aromatic subplot. She embodies leadership potential and moral confliction. This shift modernization the archetype while maintaining fairy tale accessibility. The Genie stand out as the magical mentor archetype, yet with a twist. Traditionally, mentor guide heroes and remain emotionally stable anchors. Here, the Genie possesses immense power but harbor personal longing. Portrayed by Will Smith, the character emerges comedic flamboyance with subtitle vulnerability. His personality traits include humor, loyalty, and theoretic reality are desire for freedom. As a reviewer, one might note that the Genie operate on two levels, as a source of comic relief and as an embodiment of constrained potential. His presence prevents the film from becoming overly sentimental, yet his own are enforces themes of autonomy and dignity. The character's effectiveness depends largely on tonal balance, ensuring humor enhances rather than overshadow emotional stakes. The antagonist fulfills the power seeking usurper archetype, his defining personality traits and ambition, cunning, and resentment. Unlike the hero's insecurity, which generate empathy, in the antagonist's insecurity manifests as domination. From a critical perspective, the character symbolizes ambition untempered by moral restraint. His motivation are straightforward control and recognition. While some may argue that his portrayal lacks complexity, his clarity reinforces the fairy tale structure. In archetypal storytelling, the villains often function less as psychological study and more as a thematic counterpoint. Here he represents what the hero might become if ambition eclipses integrity. Sporting character through less central contribute texture to the narrative. Companion and confident provide emotional grounding and moments of levity. This archetype, loyal friend, protective guardian, comedic sidekick, reinforce the film emphasis on community. This figure prevents the story from becoming slowly introspective, reminding viewers that identity is shaped in relationship with others. Produced by Walt Disney Pictures, the film adhered to a recognizable character framework: hero, heroine, mentor, and villain. Yet within that structure, it seeks contemporary relevance. The reviewer lens revealed that the success of these main characters lies not in radiant reinvention but in mere evaluation. The hero becomes one self aware, the heroine more empowered, the mentor more emotionally layered, and the villain more explicitly tied to themes of corrupted ambition. Ultimately, the character in this film function as archetype with humanized edges. Their personality traits are clearly defined, their emotional arc accessible, and their thematic role distinct, while the narrative remain anchored in fairy tale simplicity. The performer and updated characterization provide enough notes to maintain engagement. From a reviewer standpoint, the film character works as success when it emphasizes sincerity over spectacle, allowing archetype to feel emotionally resonant rather than merely symbolic. The film relies heavily on the emotional strength of its cast, especially it brings iconic character into live action. Their performance must feel sincere enough to balance the fantasy spectacle, and much of the film's emotional success depends on how conveniently the actors embody these well-known roles. The film Aladdin, played by Mena Massound, carries the heart of the story. Her performance is built on charm and vulnerability. Rather than portraying Aladdin as overly confident, Massoud lean into the character's insecurity and longing for acceptance. This choice adds emotional depth. In quieter scene, his expression substantially reveal doubt and internal conflict, making the character relatable. During musical number, he brings youthful energy without losing emotional sincerity. His portrayal feel grounded, which help audience emotionally invest in his journey from uncertainty to self-belief. Princess Jasmine, portrayed by Naomi Scott, delivered a poised and emotionally layered performance. Scott emphasizes intelligence and inner strength rather than dramatic rebellion. Her portrayal highlights Jasmine's desire for voice and leadership in moments of emotional intensity, particularly in her solo musical performance. She conveys determination and control passion. Her expression communicate both frustration and hope, allowing viewer to feel her internal struggle. The chemistry between Jasmine and Aladdin feels gentle and authentic, built more on sheer understanding than exaggerated romance. Their scene together have a softness that strengthens the emotional core of the film. The standout performance for many viewers is Jenny, played by Will Smith. Taking on such an iconic role requires a new interpretation, and Smith approaches it with charisma and playfulness. His comedic timing brings energy to the film, but what makes the performance emotionally effective is the balance between humor and subtitle vulnerability. Jenny belonging longing for freedom add depth beneath the jokes. Smith allow moment of sincerity to shine through the spectacle, making Jenny more than comic relief. His on-screen friendship with Aladdin create one of the film's strongest emotional connection, filled with warmth and commendation. The antagonist Jafar, portrayed by Marwan Kenzari, present a controlled and ambitious presence rather than relying on exaggerated villainy. Kenzari plays Jafar with calculated calmness. His honesty, quite intensity, contrasts with the emotional openness of the hero. This restrained performance gives the character a cold, strategic feel, while some viewers might expect a more dramatic portrayal. The subtitle approach reinforces the story's thematic focus on ambition and power. Supporting character also contribute to the emotional texture of the film. Sultan, played by Nabid Negaban, bring warmth and dignity to the loyal figure. His performance add balance, portraying authority with compassion rather than dominance. Smaller role and ensemble performer further enrich the film word, ensuring the emotional tone remain lively and connected. Overall, the acting performance in this film succeed because they prioritize sincerity with spectacle. Mena Massoud ground the story with vulnerability. Naomi Scott strengthened it with poised determination. Will Smith energized it with humor and heart, and Marwan Kenzari sharpened it with control and ambition. Together, their chemistry transformed a familiar fairy tale into an emotionally engaging live action experience. The film exists within a fantasy framework filled with magic carpets and wish granting genies, yet its effectiveness depends on how much emotional realism it can generate inside that heightened world. While the setting is intentionally theatrical, the character must feel believable in their motivation and internal struggle. The film's realism, therefore, does not come from literal possibility but from emotional truth. Its depth is measured by how conveniently the character grow, change, and reveal complexity over time. In terms of character development, the most significant arc belongs to Aladdin. His journey centered on insecurity and aspiration, which are deeply human concern. Even though he encounters supernatural opportunities, his emotional struggle, feeling unworthy due to the social status, ground the narrative in recognizable reality. His development moved from external ambition to the internal acceptance. Early on, he equates value with image and approval. Gradually, the story pushes him to confront the emptiness of a constructed persona. This shift adds psychological depth. The audience is not merely watching a hero defeat obstacle; they are witnessing a young man re-evaluate his understanding of himself. That internal reorientation gives a character credibility beyond the fantasy surface. Believability is strengthened by the restraint in performance portrayed by Mena Massoud. Aladdin display hesitation and vulnerability in key moments. These quieter expression prevent the character from becoming a simplistic fairy tale archetype. The insecurity in his voice and posture make his ambition understandable rather than arrogant. Even when the plot accelerates, the emotional continuity remain intact. Viewers can trace his decision back to fear of rejection, which is a universal experience. Princess Jasmine character also contribute to the film's depth. Rather than exciting slowly as a romantic objective, she possesses independent motivation rooted in leadership and wise. Her development reflects a desire to move beyond symbolic status into meaningful participation. The believability of her arc comes from its calm intensity. Portrayed by Naomi Scott, Jasmine expressed determination without exaggerated rebellion. Her emotional range included frustration, compassion, hope, and resilience. These layered reactions create a sense of realism. She does not transform abruptly. Instead, he gradually asserts her conviction. This progression feels emotionally earned rather than narratively convenient. The Jenny play by Will Smith presents an interesting case of realism with fantasy as an all power being. he could easily remain a one dimensional comic figure. However, the film gives him emotional grounding through his longing for autonomy. His humor is balanced by subtitle melancholy. This duality expands his emotional range and prevent the character from feeling purely ornamental. The desire for freedom humanizes him, allowing audience to connect with a figure who might otherwise feel detached from reality. His development is less dramatic than Aladdin's, but it still reflects growth from playful detachment to meaningful connection. The antagonist Jafar, portrayed by Marwan Kenzari, offer a more restrained depth. His motivation revolves around ambition and resentment, while the character remains somewhat archetypal. His calm and calculated demeanor add a degree of psychological possibility. Rather than relying solely on theoretical villainy, he expresses controlled dissatisfaction while the existing power structure. This approach lends a subtle realism, even if the character arc is less layered than the protagonist. Emotionally, the film maintains a consistent range without venturing into extreme darkness. Joy, hope, insecurity, jealousy, and determination all are present, but they are framed within a family friendly tone. The character experience setback and self doubt, yet the narrative avoids prolonged despair. This control emotional range aligns with its production context under Walt Disney Pictures, which emphasize accessibility and optimism. While this limits the intensity of psychological exploration, it preserves clarity and cohesion. Ultimately, the reality of the film lies not in his magical event but in its emotional authenticity. Character development allow understandable motivation, performance convey vulnerability and aspiration, and emotional reaction remain consistent with human experience through the story embrace spectacle. It anchors its fantasy in relatable internal struggle. The result is a film where depth emerges not from complexity of plot but from sincerity of character growth and emotional expression. The film was produced with an estimated budget in the range of 180 to 183 million dollars, placing it firmly with the upper tier of modern studio blockbuster. This figure represents a direct production cost and does not include global marketing expenditure, which likely add a substantial additional investment. From an analytical standpoint, the budget reflected a calculated balance between spectacle and control, financial planning consistent with large-scale release from Walt Disney Pictures. In terms of cost range, a production budget nearing $180 million situates the film slightly below the most expensive contemporary fantasy remake but above mid-level family features. From far comparison, Beauty and the Beast reportedly operated approximately $160 million, while The Lion King exceeded $250 million due to its extensive photorealistic CGI requirement. Within this context, the film fall into a moderate high bracket, expensive but not technologically experimental to the same degree as fully digital production. Resource allocation within the film appear to have distributed across several key production areas. A significant portion of the budget likely went toward large scale set construction and art direction rather than relying entirely on green scale environment. The production built expensive physical set to depict the fictional city of Agrabah, marketplace scenes, palace interior, and elaborate dance sequence require detailed architectural design and coordinated crowd staging. Practical set construction increase upfront costs but enhance visual depth and actor interaction, which can reduce over reliance on post production effect. Visual effect constituted another major allocation. The character of the Genie, portrayed by Will Smith, required extensive CGI integration, blending while live performances with digital augmentation and the complex rendering, motion capture, refinement, and compositing. Additionally, magical transformation, environmental enhancement, and fantasy sequence contributed to post-production expenses. While the film does not rely entirely on CGI environment, its fantasy component necessitated advanced digital work to maintain visual and costume and production design. Also demanded significant financial investment. The film aesthetic emphasizes vibrant fabrics, integrated embroidery, and coordinated color palette. Musical number require multiple costume variation and rehearsals for in ensemble choreography. Such element contribute to both production time and labor cost. In large musical fantasy film, wardrobe and choreography are not secondary detail, they are central to the film's identity and audience appeal. Cost compensation form another layer of expenditure. The involvement of an internationally recognized performers like Will Smith key likely represented a meaningfully percentage of the talent budget. However, the casting of the relatively emerging actor in the lead role may have moderated overall story salary distribution. This combination suggests strategic financial planning, balancing star appeal with cost efficiency. When compared to the similar film with Disney remakes like Aladdin demonstrated a consistent budgeting strategy. Like Beauty and the Beast, it combined practical sets with digital enhancement rather than relying exclusively on computer generated world. Unlike The Lion King, which required groundbreaking rendering technology for realistic element animation, Aladdin maintained a hybrid approach that controlled technological risk while still delivering spectacle. From a financial perspective, the production budget aligned with the studio broader remake model, invest heavily in recognizable intellectual property, allocate resources to visual spectacle and music, and ensure global marketability. The film's cost range reflects confidence in its cross-generational appeal. It is neither a modest adaptation nor an experimental technical showcase. Instead, it occupies a calculated middle ground within big budget fantasy filmmaking. Overall, the production budget of the film illustrates a structured allocation of the resource across set construction, visual effect, costume design, and cast. Alice position with comparable live action remake. It reflects strategic financial planning designed to maximize visual impact while maintaining manageable risk within the blockbuster landscape. The film performed strongly at the domestic box office, earning approximately $355 million in the United States and Canada. Within the context of the North America market, this figure represents a significant commercial success, particularly for a live action remake of an animated property. The domestic region, often considered a key indicator of a film culture penetration and staying power, responded with consistent turnout over several weeks rather than a short-lived opening surge. The film debuted during the competitive Memorial Day weekend frame, traditionally a strong launch period for summer release. Its opening was solid but not record-breaking compared to some earlier remakes from Walt Disney Pictures. However, what distinguished its domestic performance was stability. Instead of experiencing sharp second week decline, the film maintained moderate week-to-week drop. This pattern suggests positive word of mouth and sustained family attendance, particularly among multi-generational viewers. Audience trend play a central role in shaping the film. Domestic result family-oriented film often benefit from repeat viewing and broad demographic appeal. In this case, the movie attracted three key audience segments: children experiences the story for the first time, parents familiar with the 1992 animated version, and the young adult drawn by nostalgia. Musical element and vibrant visual style also appeal to viewers seeking light escapist entertainment during the early summer season. Comparatively, the domestic total plays Aladdin before the extraordinary North American performance of Beauty and the Beast, while exceed $500 million domestically, but above several other remake entries that earn in the $250 to $300 million range. It's domestic that while not every adaptation would replicate record-breaking number, these remains strong domestic demand for recognizable fantasy musical property. When measured against The Lion King, which achieved over $540 million domestically, the film occupy a middle tier with Disney remake strategy. The difference can partially be attributed to brand hierarchy. The Lion King historically command broader across demographic prestige. Nevertheless, surpassing $350 million domestically confirmed that Aladdin resonated effectively with American and Canadian audience. Regional pattern within the domestic market also suggest urban and suburban family turnout as a key director. Large metropolitan area with diverse population contributed strongly to box office total, reflecting the film multicultural casting and musical style. Additionally, the PG rating expanded its accessibility, allowing broad attendance without significant consistent restriction. Another contextual factor involve audience escapism prior to release. Earlier marketing generating debate over visual effect and casting choices, particularly concerning the Jenny character, yet the domestic indicate the initial hesitation did not significantly suppress turnout. Instead, steady performance implied that viewers responded positively once that film entered wide release. From an analytical standpoint, the domestic growth also reflect the continuing viability of the theatrical release. Family release in an evolving entertainment landscape increasingly influenced by streaming platform. In 2019, theatrical distribution remaining a dominant channel for large-scale studio production. A $355 million domestic total confirmed the audience were still willing to attend cinema for event driven family spectacle. The domestic box office performance of the film demonstrated strong original engagement across the United States and the Canada, supported by stable audience trend, nostalgic appeal, and the broad demographic reach. The film secured a solid position within Disney remake catalog. While not the highest domestic earners through its piracy, sustained earning and multi-generational turnout affirm its commercial effectiveness within the North America market. The film achieved particularly strong result in an international market, in earning approximately $695 million outside the United States and the Canada, bringing its worldwide total to over $1 billion. When analyzed separately from domestic performance, the international box office revealed how global audience engagement significantly amplified the film's commercial success. Originally, the film performed exceptionally well across Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and the Latin America. In Europe, markets such as the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and the Italy deliver consistent ticket sale, reflecting the continued popularity of the musical fantasy film in those territories. The European audience tend to respond well to visually lavish production with recognizable brand identities, and Disney remake strategy carries cross-border recognition. In Asia, the film demonstrated notable performances in Japan and South Korea, while China delivered moderate but respectable results. Unlike some action-driven blockbusters that rely heavily on the Chinese market, the film did not depend on a single territory for international dominance. Instead, its strength was distributed across multiple regions, reducing financial risk and enhancing global stability. This diversified international spread is often considered a sign of broad cultural accessibility. The Middle East representing another important design, given the film Middle Eastern inspired setting and aesthetic, there was a particular interest in how the adaptation would be received. Box office numbers suggest that audience in Gulf countries and the surrounding territories responding positively. While the fictional city of Argaba is not tied to a specific nation, the film's visual influence and costume design resonated with viewers in the region, contributed to the strong ticket sale. Latin America also play a key role in the international total. Countries such as Brazil and Mexico consistently support the large-scale family film, especially those featuring music and spectacle. The combination of the colorful visuals and the energetic musical number align well with audience preferences in these markets. Additionally, Disney's well-established distribution network in Latin America help maximize theatrical reach. Market reception internationally appear more uniformly positive than some early domestic escapism might have predicted. While marketing debate initially focused on the visual effect and casting decision, international audience often place greater emphasis on overall entertainment value and brand familiarity. Once released, the film's tone, humor, and the musical energy appear to outweigh pre-release concern. In many territories, marketing impact contributed significantly to the film's overseas success. Disney executed a globally synchronized promotional campaign that emphasized spectral nostalgia and star power. The casting of Will Smith as Genie carried substantial international recognition, particularly in Europe and part of Asia, while his nation and comedy film have historically performed well. Promotional tours, localized advertising, and dubbed musical track further enhance accessibility across language and culture. When compared to the similar live-action remake from Walt Disney Picture, Aladdin stands as one of the stronger international performer, while Beauty and the Beast achieve impressive overseas number and The Lion King reach extraordinarily global height. Aladdin demonstrated balance and widespread international tractations rather than relying on isolated regional peaks. From an analytical perspective, the international learning were essential to the film's overall profitability, within a production budget approaching $180 billion and substantial marketing expenditure overseas market providing the majority share of total revenue. This reflects a broader industry trend in international audience often determine the ultimate financial outcome of major studio release. In the international box office, performance of Aladdin 2019 revealed a broadly positive global reception across multiple regions through diversified market strength, effective global marketing, and culturally adaptable appeal. The film secures strong overseas revenue that ultimately propel it past the 1 billion worldwide milestone. And now we talk about the conclusion. The worldwide gross of approximately $1.05 billion combining domestic and international earning. This total position the film among the $1 billion earner of its release year and place it comfortably with the upper tier of modern fantasy blockbuster. However, understanding the significance of that number requires a closer look at break-even analysis, revenue distribution, and the broader financial ecosystem surrounding a major studio release. The global audience play a decisive role in reaching this milestone. While North America contributed a substantial portion of revenue, international territories counted for the majority of total earnings. This distribution reflects a contemporary industry reality. Large-scale studio film increasingly depend on overseas market to ensure profitability. In the case of the Aladdin, international audience not only supplemented domestic revenue but ultimately drove the film past of the $1 billion threshold. Break-even analysis for the film of this scale extend beyond the reported production budget, which was estimated at roughly $180 million. Marketing and distribution expenses often referred to as print and advertising PA, which can add an additional 100 to $150 million or more for a global campaign of this magnitude. When these costs are combined, total expenditure may approach or exceed $300 million. Industry analysts often apply a general rule that a film must earn approximately 2 to 2.5 times its production budget to break even due to the theater revenue split and marketing overhead. Theatrical revenue does not return entirely to the studio box office. Received are divided between exhibitor and distributor, with percentage varying by region and contractual agreement. In North America, studios typically receive around 50 to 55% of the ticket sale. International split vary more widely and may be lower in certain territories. As a result, the studio's actual retained share of $1.05 billion across should be significantly less than the headline figure. Even accounting for distribution cost and revenue split, the film comfortably surpassed its break-even point if total combined production and marketing expenditure approached $300 to $350 million. A worldwide gross exceeding $1 billion suggests substantial profitability from the theatrical exhibition alone. This margin would be further strengthened by additional revenue stream. Beyond box office earning, ancillary revenue stream contribute meaningfully to the overall profitability. These include home entertainment sales and the streaming licensing agreement, television broadcasting right, and merchandising. As a property connected to a well-established brand under Walt Disney Picture, Aladdin benefited from long-term franchise integration, soundtrack design, track scale, sales, consumer product, and the theme park tie-ins extend revenue well beyond theoretical window. The global audience response also enhanced the property long-term value of billion-dollar worldwide gross signals strong brand durability and the international appeal, reinforcing the studio's strategy of adopting recognizable animated classic into live action format. Commercial success on this scale can justify sequel development, expanded merchandising, and cross platform distribution strategies. The worldwide gross of the film demonstrated not only strong theatrical attendance but also effective global market penetration. When examined through break-even analysis, revenue sharing structure, and ancillary income stream, the film clearly exceeded its financial threshold. Its billion-dollar performance reflects the combined strength of domestic and international audience, efficient distribution strategy, and diversified revenue channel that collectively secured its commercial success. Now we talk about the commercial profits. When evaluated through standard industry financial analysis with a reported production budget of approximately $180 million and estimated global marketing and distribution expense that may have added another $120 to $150 million, total cost likely range between $300 to $330 million. Against this investment, the film generated over $1.05 billion worldwide, creating a substantial revenue to cost gap in favor of profitability. Profitability can't be assessed by comparing the full worldwide gross directly to the total cost. Theater retain a percentage of box office receipt. In North America, studios typically receive around 50 to 55% of the ticket sale, while international returns vary and are often lower in some regions. Even so, when applying average studio retention rate, industry estimates suggest that Disney's share of the theatrical gross would likely have been in the range of $500 to $600 million. If we conservatively estimate the total expense at $320 million and studio theatrical return at approximately $5 million, the film would have generated a significant theatrical return at approximately $550 million. The film would have generated significant theatrical operating profit before ancillary revenue stream are considered. These loan suggests strong financial performance. Ancillary income often strengthen the profitability picture. As a major release under Walt Disney Pictures, the film benefited from diversified post-theatrical revenue channels. These include digital purchases, Blu-ray and DVD sales, pay TV licensing and streaming distribution, and airline exhibition right. In addition, soundtrack sale and music streaming contribute to the long-term earning, particularly for a musical film with recognizable song. Merchandising represent another major financial factor because the film is connected to an established brand. Consumer products such as costume, toy, apparels, and collectibles generate additional revenue beyond ticket sale. Disney vertically integrated model allow it to leverage film release across theme park, retail outlets, and digital platform. Even if merchandise revenue is not counted directly toward film profitability, counting it enhances the broader return on intellectual property. Return on investment is a useful measure in this context. ROI consider net profit relatively to the total investment. If total cost were approximately $320 million and net return from theatrical and ancillary channels significantly exceed that figure, the film ROI would be considered strong by industry standard. While it may not have achieved the extraordinary profit margin of some higher grossing remark like The Lion King, it nearly outperformed its financial threshold and delivered meaningful gain. Comparative with the film financial performance aligning closely with other successful live action remakes such as Beauty and the Beast. Through a slightly lower scale, important profitability also scared franchise availability. $1 billion global cross signal total strong market demand and reduced financial risk for potential sequel or expanded storytelling within the same brand universe. In conclusion, when analyzing revenue versus cost, accounting for theoretical split and incorporating ancillary income stream, the film was definitely profitable. Its worldwide earning exceeding estimated expenditure by a comfortable margin, and its diversified revenue channel further enhanced overall return. From a financial standpoint, the film represents a successful investment within Disney broader live action adaptation strategy, delivering both immediate box office performance and sustained long term value. It generated a wide range of audience reactions shaped largely by demographic nostalgia and expectations surrounding live action remake, while critical reception was mixed to moderately positive. General audience feedback leaned more favorable, particularly among family viewers and younger demographic. From a demographic standpoint, the film attracted three primary audience groups. First, were families with children who responded strongly to the movie's colorful visual, musical number, and accessible storytelling. Younger viewers, especially those under 50, engage enthusiastically with the fantasy element and the comedic sequence. For this group, the films function less as a comparison to the animated classic and more as a standalone spectacle. This reaction tended to focus on energy, humor, and a memorable song rather than adaptation accuracy. The second major demographic consistency of millennial and adult who grew up with the 1992 animated version. This group approached the film with nostalgia driven expectation. Viewers' feedback with this segment was more now. Some appreciated the updated performance, expanded character, and modernized tone. Other expressed reservation about changes to pacing or reinterpretation of iconic scenes. However, even among nostalgic audience, many viewers acknowledging that the film maintained the spirit of the original while offering a new interpretation. The third group include international audience who may not have had a strong or emotional attachment to the animated predecessor but were drawn to the spectacle and the star power. Their feedback frequently emphasized entertainment value rather than comparison. In global market engagement, appeal centered on visual design, large scale musical number, and the charismatic performance of Will Smith and Jenny. Viewers' feedback across social media platforms reflected a shift from early escapism to the post-release acceptance. Prior to the release, promotional material sparked debate, particularly regarding the visual presentation of the Jenny character. However, after audience experienced the full performance with the film's narrative context, many reactions often viewers often describe the Jenny as energetic and distinct rather than derivative of the animated portrayal. Engagement metrics include online discussion, fan videos, and the musical cover suggested sustained audience interaction beyond opening weekends. Now we talk about the audience reaction appear more favorable than some early critical forecasts predict. Word of mouth play a key role in maintaining box office stability over multiple weeks rather than experiencing steep second week decline. The world shows steady hold, indicating the viewers were recommending it within social circles. In summary, general audience reaction to Aladdin were broadly positive, particularly among families and younger viewers, while nostalgic adults offer more mixed but still engaged responses. Overall, viewers' feedback emphasized entertainment, musical energy, and visual vibrancy through across demographic appeal and sustained audience engagement. The second film secured a reputation as an enjoyable and commercially successful live action adaptation. Aladdin demonstrates how box office performance can significantly shape public and industry perception. Financial success often reframe critical debate, influencing how film is remembered and evaluated over time. While early reviews were mixed, the movie global gross of over $1 billion shifted the conversation from escapism to acknowledgement of broad audience approval. Children reception initially focused on adaptation choices, visual effect, and comparison to the animated original. Some viewers questioned whether the remake justified its existence artistically. However, strong ticket sales suggested that general audience responded more positively than certain critics predicted. When a film performed exceptionally well commercially, it often gave a perception of validation, amplifying the audience enjoyment outweigh critical hesitation. For Walt Disney Pictures, the film's financial outcome reinforced its live action remake strategy. Commercial dream strengthened a studio reputation for understanding audience demand even when critical consensus is divided. A $1 billion performance signal market confidence, which can outweigh moderate reviews in corporate decision making. As a result, perception shift from questioning creative necessity to recognizing strategic success. The film, alongside with other fantasy musical remakes such as Beauty and the Beast and The Lion, and while not the highest honor among them, its placement with the $1 billion category elevated its status within the genre. Financial achievement tend to solidify the film standing as a mainstream success rather than a marginal experiment. Ultimately, the box office impact influence how both audience and the industry observer interpret a film's cultural value. In this case, the commercial strength enhanced the perception of the Aladdin as a successful and a widely embraced adaptation regardless of mixed earlier critics. The film stands as a visually ambitious and commercially confident adaptation that balances spectacle with familiarity. From a cinematic quality standpoint, the film succeeds most strongly in its presentation. The vibrant production design, elaborate costume, and energetic choreography create a colorful fantasy world that feels immersive and celebratory. Director Guy Ritchie tempered his typically fast-paced style to accommodate musical storytelling, resulting in a film that feels more polished than stylistically daring. In terms of production value, the movie clearly reflects a substantial budget, set construction, large scale dance sequence, and detailed art direction elevate the visual experience. While certain CGI heavy movement occasionally appear artificial, the overall aesthetic remains cohesive and engaging. The musical number in particularly are staged with confidence and energy, serving as highlights of the film. Performance wise, Will Smith brings charisma and individuality to the journey, avoiding limitation and instead offering a reinterpretation built around his own screen presence. The lead performance carries sincerity, especially in quieter character scenes, through some emotional beats feel restrained rather than deeply layered. Thematically, the film emphasizes self-worth, identity, and empowerment. It reinforces messages about honesty and inner value through these themes are presented in a straightforward, family-friendly manner rather than with profound complexity. The film excels in entertainment value and visual spectacle. Its primary strength lie in performance energy and production scale, while its weakness stem from occasional over reliance on spectacle over emotional depth. Nevertheless, it remains an enjoyable and well executed adaptation. The film is best suited for viewers who enjoy vibrant fantasy adventure with a strong musical element and clear uplifting theme. For family audience, especially those children age 6 and above, the films offer colorful visuals, catchy songs, and a simple moral framework centered on honesty, courage, and believing in oneself. Its PG rating and light-hearted tone make it accessible for younger viewers without being becoming overly intense or emotionally heavy. Fans of the fantasy musical genre will likely appreciate the film's grand production style. If you enjoy elaborate dance number, ornate costume, and theatrical set piece, this adaptation delivers spectacle in abundance. Viewers who are drawn to fairy tale storytelling, magical transformation, and romantic adventure will find the atmosphere immersive and celebratory. The emotional resonance lean toward optimism rather than complexity, making it an easy and comforting watch. The film is also recommended for those who appreciate star-driven performance, particularly audience familiar with Will Smith. His energetic portrayal of Jenny add modern charisma and humor, which may appeal to both younger viewers and adults seeking nostalgia yet refresh entertainment. The movie may not fully satisfy viewers who prefer darker, more psychologically complex narrative. If your genre preferences lean toward greater realism, subtitle, character studies, or unconventional storytelling, the film bright on a straightforward theme may feel predictable. Similarly, these deeply attached to the animated original might find certain reinterpretations less emotionally impactful. Overall, the film is best for families, musical lovers, and fantasy fans seeking a visually rich and emotionally uplifting cinematic experience.